Hey guys, and welcome to the Invar Technologies Podcast, a podcast where we interview top-level executives inside leading and growing companies in the manufacturing space. We're excited to have our guest today, Rich Berger. We'll be diving into his story, a little bit about his background. He's definitely done a couple of different things that we want to dive into, and currently his current company that he's at, Kiva Connections, what they're up to. And so make sure to stick around and watch this video all the way to the end. We'll go ahead and just kick it off to you, though, Rich. If you could just introduce yourself, tell a quick snippet of your story and your background prior to working at Kiva Confections.
You definitely need to stick around as a viewer. This is going to be an exciting conversation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's get into it.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you, Alessandro, and I'm looking forward to it.
Me as well. Awesome. So yeah, if you could just introduce yourself, man, why don't you just tell a little, quick snippet of your story, your background, prior to working at Kiva Conventions.
Sure. I've been fortunate enough to be in the food and beverage industry for most of my 35-year career, from brewery to distillery to fresh, refrigerated, frozen bakery products, energy bars, beverages, spices, and sauces. I've always been on the operations side of the industry, and currently I'm on the team at Kiva Confections. Kiva Confections is a San Francisco Bay Area based cannabis edibles business that currently sits as the number one edibles brand in the country. We're in about 18 states now and growing rapidly. I run the operation for Kiva, including manufacturing, supply chain, procurement, demand planning, engineering, technology, people safety, food safety, quality, and profitability. Really, everything around the ops side of the business. Kiva is really an amazing company. It was founded by Scott and Christy Palmer about 15 years ago, with a mission really pretty similar to most successful entrepreneurs, a mission to create a better experience for consumers. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it, with so many other entrepreneurs, for sure. Not really just creating a premium edible product, but rather completely rethinking the quality, consistency, and standards for ingredients, potency, production, packaging, testing. Really rethinking the entire offering for the consumer. And I think the result is really a set of brands: Kiva, Lost Farm, Petra, Terra are some of the brand examples that have really become the gold standard for the entire legal cannabis industry. And by the way, you can order anywhere in the U.S. through our direct-to-consumer website, particularly our hemp-based D9 products at kivaconfections.shop. So check that out.
Definitely. That's awesome. I love to hear. I'm always a big fan of hearing people's vision and to yourself, the start of the company, right? And the vision that they have behind it is obviously it's going to continue to propel it for success, right? And it's awesome that you're behind that mission, you're bought in, and you're obviously building towards that. I wanted to ask, how was that switch for you? Because you obviously were I know we've talked about this off camera. You were in the food and beverage world for quite a while. You had your hands on with a lot of manufacturing plants and really, directing the operations over there. How was it getting into the cannabis world, and how was that switch for you?
Yeah, it was one that I felt was easy at the time. I've been with Kiva for about a year and a half, close to 2 years, and The switch was pretty easy because this particular sector in the food and beverage industry has really matured. You've got CPG professionals really all over this sector that are leading it, managing it, running it, executing it. It has really surfaced, very similar to many of the large CPG companies. So
Definitely.
really, the
Definitely.
switch was pretty easy. I would say that had I made that switch maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, it would have been a very big adjustment. But I think Kiva, like many cannabis companies now, have just really been injected with a lot of CPG talent.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And it's
Mhm.
always, I wanted to ask you as we're talking, I'm thinking like how different is the manufacturing part of the side of things? Are they relatively the same in both, both verticals? Is there much difference between the two, or how would you explain that?
I think really the focus areas really haven't changed for me, right? It's food safety and quality at the top. Of course, taking care of our people and making sure that we have a good, safe work environment and one that returns folks home healthier than when they came to work. Things like that, really, the compulsories, the foundation, the basic infrastructure of businesses is very similar.
Yeah.
A lot of the processes are different, but that goes for really even most food and
Yeah.
beverage companies. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
other than differences in processes, really the focus
Fundamentals are
areas.
really, yeah. Yeah, well, obviously you've had such a career, right? Like you've been around, you've done so much, and you've been inside the industry. What type of trends are you currently seeing at the current moment in the market that you're aware of?
Mhm. Well, I'd say in terms of the supply chain, we're coming out of the COVID era with I think a very different approach to stock levels because of uncertainty in supply. During COVID, the name of the game was really safety stock, right? I mean, almost to a fault. If you could get your hands on materials, components, ingredients, etc., you'd take title to it. You'd grab it, knowing that supply chains were pretty tight. We and really many in the industry that I talk to are trending away from that now. And while it's not quite the just in time inventory that we saw maybe 10, 15 years ago, it's certainly heading in that direction. Look, capital is pretty hard to come by. And so we're returning back to freeing up cash with as lean of inventories as we can. Vendor managed inventories, consignments, extended terms, really anything around becoming more lean in terms of raw material and finished goods supplies. In terms of manufacturing, we're really excited to see the food and beverage industry move toward the next phase of digitization, driven by, I think, the rise of data and connectivity,
Yep.
analytics, human to machine interaction, and improvement in robotics. Most in the manufacturing environment, particularly in food and beverage, to this as Industry 4.0, which really all that means is we're seeing a movement that builds on the inventions of the third industrial revolution or the digital revolution, and we're seeing new technology beyond what we thought were the sort of the previous realm of possibilities. So it's like connectivity, data, computational power, analytics, and intelligence. like I said, the human to machine interaction, such as virtual reality, augmented reality, AI, and then advanced engineering, such as 3D printing and so forth. So, really seeing the manufacturing trending as well. And then I think technology, when we think about technology, it's really just about half of the industry 4.0 equation. I think to thrive in this kind of environment, companies really have to ensure that their workers are properly equipped through upskilling, reskilling, building those workforce capabilities and shifting the mindsets for successful digital transformations in manufacturing really can't be stressed enough. Um, David Geckler, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, with Western Digital over at the World Economic Forum. Something he said really had stuck with me. He said, it's not just about our company being better and us being prepared for the future. It's about all of our employees being ready for that future, keeping them at the center, having them highly engaged, all of the reskilling, getting them excited about what the future holds. That quote really stuck with me because it really tells the story of that technology is really sort of a two-part system. It's implementing and executing that technology, but also making sure that your workforce is ready for it. And then lastly, in terms of trends, I'd say in terms of innovation, food and beverage innovation, I'm seeing demand continue around health and wellness focused products, including plant-based products. I'm seeing eco-friendly packaging and other sustainable solutions still being seeked out by consumers. Uh, Consumers want clean, simple ingredients, including those that fit into the category of chemical-free agriculture. So they're looking at labels like they never have before. Ethical sourcing. Global fit flavors are also a pretty big trend right now, and as particularly as our world gets more and more connected. And then non-alcoholic drinks are also a pretty big trend. So really seeing trends in a lot of different areas as an operator, as an innovator, and in terms of technology, really an exciting time to be in the industry.
Definitely. And I think you touched on so many great points that, a lot of the people that we've been talking to have brought up a couple, but you really did a great job of kind of encompassing, I think, about just every trend that I've thought about and am seeing at the current moment, talking to other people within the industry. I did want to ask a follow-up, because you were talking a lot about technology, talking a lot about, different aspects of it. We're obviously a technology company over here at Invar, and we're always curious, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges in relationship to technology inside the food and beverage industry?
Yeah, yeah. I would go back to probably at the top. I'd go back to skills, and just making sure that your team is ready for the change, right?
Mm,
But some other relationships, I think, to trends and those challenges. I think first is transparency. Uh,
mhm,
Food consumers have become more and more concerned about how the foods they buy are sourced and produced and where it comes from. And so, as a producer, we've got to step up and be very transparent about those sources. Inflation of prices is another big challenge for us. Sustainability and environmental concerns. and how to apply those to our industry through packaging, through innovative ingredients is always a big challenge for anyone in the food and beverage industry. I talked about a little bit about labor and skilled labor, but I would also say just availability of labor is also a challenge. And I'd sort of wrap it up by saying food safety is probably up there as well. We've got a high level of globalization in the industry right now, and there are new food regulations and a number of different hazards that we have to be ready for and aware of as a manufacturer. So yeah, that's a great question, because how the industry is changing and evolving is one thing. The challenges associated with them, like some of the things I just mentioned,
Definitely.
definitely go along with it.
100%. And you've obviously, you've been on the front lines, right? I like to say, the operational executives, they definitely always get their hands dirty. They're in there, they're, making things happen. They're driving the business forward. They're dealing with the day-to-day. You guys obviously have a lot of tasks that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and having to, push through those.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to other operational executives to kind of avoid some of the common pitfalls that you've seen throughout your career, that you wish if you could, maybe turn back the clock 20, 30 years, you'd be able to tell your younger self?
Well, most of the time I'm grabbing advice from others. So I'm generally not used to giving others advice. I love hearing it from others. But with the opportunity, a few things that come to mind first is to just remember that conversations like the one we're having today, for example, are way more engaging than statements. Conversation, I truly believe conversation creates change. Statements don't. And so while pretty simple, I kind of find that pretty profound, right? I think having conversations amongst each other in the industry, and even with folks like you and your team in the IT services industry is just super valuable. I would encourage everyone in the industry to have conversations. That's what creates change. Second, be persistent. At the surface, something may actually appear to be a waste of time, a poor priority, a failure from the start. If you truly believe in the objective and what you're doing and what you want to achieve, be persistent with it. Don't be so quick to move on to another initiative. Continue to go after it, and likely that ice will break or the fog will clear, and you'll get to success. Be a courageous leader. Don't necessarily be a follower. There's advantages to being a follower. There's less risk. You're not out in front. You're not as vulnerable. But I think that the benefits way outweigh the cons to it. So be out in front and be an example for the rest of the industry and take some chances. Also, I think as a leader, we typically know our strengths and our gaps, but do we know the same for our business? Do we know our business's strengths and weaknesses as much as we know our own? Go after it. Try to really understand that and build on those strengths and try to plug those gaps as much as you can. And it may also help you set priorities for your business going forward. And then lastly, I would just say, be open to feedback. Be willing to learn from your mistakes. and value feedback from others. Make a performance conversation, for example, with one of your employees, a two-way conversation, and try to really understand where you can improve and better support.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's some great advice. And it kind of leads me perfectly uh, into my next question, because you obviously touched on a little bit, but I wanted to maybe hear it, direct from the source. What type of, this is obviously an opinion-based question, because I'm sure it's going to vary from leader that we talk to, but what type of mindset is really needed to be a successful VP of operations?
Hmm. I'd say there's several mindset ingredients. I think first, strategic planning. Um, you're planning strategically may involve developing clear procedures for others, or following or organizing a budget for a specific project. But always be thinking about a strategic plan. And I think second is being able to comfortably delegate. Um, I think communication is also extremely important. I'm not saying that you should communicate. I think that we all know that, but I'm talking about what you should be communicating. Everyone on your team should really understand how their individual efforts and responsibilities relate to the success of the company. Time management, I think, is super important. Actively listening. And what I mean by actively listening, it's asking follow-up questions. It's seeking to really understand what's being presented or discussed with you, and jumping in and contributing to a solution. I think by listening well to people within the organization, I think we can really contribute to the company culture of respect for others' opinions. Problem solving, I also think is really an important mindset, to just be thinking about the skills that are required to solve problems effectively, and making sure that those skills exist on your team. And then lastly, I think budget management is also pretty important. Always having your eye on where the dollars are going, where your opportunities are, and continuing to fine tune that throughout the year, is and communicate and collaborate throughout the year is pretty important.
Definitely. I think you touched on some great different characteristics and traits, and what's needed really, to be not only a successful VP of operations, but this is like, it can allude to other roles as well inside of a company, top level positions, because to your point about problem solving, you need to be, as a leader in any company, you're always going to face problems. There's going to be a continuous battle against challenges that arise, right? When you go to a different stage in business, if you grow, there's going to be a new set of challenges that you have to overcome, right? So it's a constant reinforcement that we have to be okay with dealing with those problems, and how can we deal with them in an efficient manner. And to your point, how can we be budget conscientious, and budget, and having that right, mindset towards understanding that how to spend your dollars most efficiently, right? That's going to be able to benefit the organization in the long term. And I love that you bring that up. I did want to ask you, in terms, I wanted to go back to technology a little, because I wanted to see if you guys, at Kiva Confections, or in general, if you were just if there's any new technologies that you're looking at. I know you were talking about some during the trends, or is there anything that you're looking to implement right now within the business?
Absolutely. I think in terms of digitization, the domestication and socialization of data is something we're all hands on deck. We are
while we're a growing company, we are still very much of a young company. And so not every piece of valuable data comes to the surface for us. If it does, it's not particularly in a state in which we can help manage the business with it. So we're right now we're focused on making sure we're grabbing the right data at the right time in the right format, so that the team and the company's leadership and each individual functional leadership can use that data to their advantage to help us be more efficient and more accurate in what we do. Productivity improvements, particularly as labor and benefit costs go up, we've got to continue to find ways to be more productive, particularly on the manufacturing line. So we're constantly looking at capitalizing where it makes sense, but it's not always just capital. Some of it is just processes, right? It's best practices, it's SOPs. Thirdly, I'd say a number of initiatives to improve our cash position. I mentioned earlier lean inventory. That is an example of one of several things we're doing to make sure we direct our cash to the most valuable purposes in the company. Tying it up on inventory is not necessarily the best way to do that. So just making sure we're as lean as we can when it comes to inventory, and doing what we can to improve our cash position. And then lastly, but I would say certainly not lowest priority. In fact, I'd probably argue that it's probably highest priority. It's people safety, it's our work environment, it's our people, and it's maintaining trust in our brand. We are actually, I would say, we're relentless when it comes to quality. That includes all the inputs that go into our finished products and the finished product itself. Where we absolutely are emphatic about making sure we present our best food to our consumers. So quality is right up there, and implementing the technology to maintain that is really important to us.
Definitely. Yeah. And I love the way that you're thinking about it, right? Because especially when it comes to data, right? It's so important to have data-driven decisions, right? And having the right data that's accessible. A lot of the times organizations, they have a whole bunch of data, but maybe they don't know, they haven't put it together in a nice, easy to use platform that they're able to then be able to use that data when it comes to decision making, right? Because if you're not using data when you're making decisions, you're making decisions based off emotion, right? Or feeling, right? And then your business is being run off emotions and feeling instead of being run by data, right? And so it's I like that that's the forefront of your mind, because I think we're thinking about it the right way in terms of how you should be progressing the business forward and making sure you're making more logical decisions and better decisions for the company.
Yeah. About 15 years ago, I had an experience where I finally decided we badly needed an MES system, MOM system, very similar in the food industry, but we badly needed that in our operations. And I kind of took a step back, Alessandro, and I noticed that we were actually extremely data rich. We had all the data we could ever talk about SCADA. We could tell you for every single motor that turned in the plant, we had data on it. I could tell you the torque. I could tell you the amp draw. I could even tell you the temperature of every process that was happening along the production line. The problem was that we were data rich. That was the problem. We were information poor. We did not have the right data at the right time in front of the right people. And so as a result, we had all the data we needed. We just didn't have the information that we needed.
Yeah.
And so it really triggered a different way of thinking about an MES or MOM system on the shop floor. And it was less about, let's try to grab every kind of data we can off the shop floor. And instead, it was really about what is of value to our team? How can what data information is needed for us to best manage the business, right? So just kind of supporting what you said. I think you're exactly right. You could be data rich and still not even close to being there.
100%. Yeah. And that's a phenomenal point. I don't like to ask too far out. I don't like 5-10 year plans because I feel like it's just hard to see those. But the next 12 months, what does that look like for yourself and Kiva Confections?
Yeah, I'm super excited about the next 12 months. Actually, I think first we have a number of emerging markets, or call them states, in which we're looking to expand. So that is really exciting because it's true organic growth, right? You're expanding your market in areas that you have not even been in. So as cannabis continues to be legalized across the U.S., we're introducing our brands into those markets, and it's really exciting. I think second is that Kiva is very much of an innovator. Our founders, Christy and Scott Palmer, they are still very involved in the business. You can actually find Scott in the test kitchen, still working on new flavors and new products, new formats, and continuing to stay just really on top of innovation. So what's exciting about that is Kiva is such a strong innovator that every new product that comes out of our kitchens are just great products, ones we can really get behind and be excited about, and that our consumers love. So really excited about that. And then for me personally, Kiva's growing, and it's just it's also a very young company that still has a lot in front of us in terms of building processes and building culture in the organization. And that's exciting. When you're working in an environment where you're creating, it's always, at least for me, it's just it's really a thrill. So I'm really looking forward to the coming 12 months for sure.
That's awesome. I'm excited for you guys as well. I can hear the passion, and it's always exciting to be a part of something as well, right? That's part of something that's growing, and so I can definitely see that that's something you're excited for as well.
On occasion, when I have the opportunity, I'll walk up to our kitchen and see what's cooking, so to speak. And we generally start with what we call virgin product, which basically means it's non-medicated product, and we work on textures and flavors and things like that. And I don't usually leave out of that. I don't usually walk out of there in less than, say, an hour, because there's so many really delicious products to taste and and listen to stories behind it. It's pretty exciting.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I always like to end with a loaded question, Rich. You've been dropping nuggets of wisdom throughout the whole podcast, and so it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of great advice that you've been giving to the listeners. But if you had to really summarize, some of the most important things you learned in your career, and tell the audience, what would those be?
Things that I've learned in my career.
Correct.
I have several thoughts, and hopefully it doesn't take us too long here.
Yeah.
First, just have the right people on your team. And it may sound cliche, but one bad apple really does spoil the whole bunch. So, we all have pretty tough decisions to make. It's really important to have people who can perform the functions of the job on the team. Second, I'd say practice what you preach. If you expect certain characteristics in people, you should be someone that they can emulate. Feedback. Third, I'd say feedback. Be thinking about feedback as a two-way street, or sometimes I will say a two-way conduit. That's not a one-way flow of information. I give others license to say whatever they would like to say to me, but that's got to work both ways. I need to give it, but I also need to hear it. Communication is pretty key. I'm not sitting here saying that we should communicate. I think we all know that, but it's really about what you should be communicating, and just so the team really has a good understanding about how their individual responsibilities and positions relate to the success of the company. I would also say there's a difference between telling and leading. This was a pretty hard lesson for me to learn in the beginning of my career. I had some very interesting learnings there. But I quickly realized that if I wanted to help my employees grow in their careers and to find answers on their own, to ask questions that were thought-provoking, to challenge the team about how to solve problems, and get the team more inspired. And at the end, we'll see even more success. Trust your gut. I'm a big believer in database decisions. Don't get me wrong. But man, I value the gut. And when I have conversations with someone on the team, and the data may point us to some other decision, but our gut is telling us something else, I would encourage folks to follow it. Take risks. Usually that means some failures, probably a lot of failures, but that means you're stepping out, taking a risk, and putting yourself out there, putting your company out there to get ahead of the competition. And then lastly, don't ever stop learning. Always continue to learn. Kind of goes along with practicing what you preach, but participating in two-way feedback, but really demonstrating that you're a learner, and as you lead, one who understands really the value of diversity of thought. I love constructive debate. I love a room full of teammates that all have different perspectives, so that we can get them all out on the table and make really good, strong recommendations and action plans. So that would be kind of a sampling of perhaps some things I might offer.
Yeah, that's some great advice, man. And I hope that the people that are listening implement that as well, because I think you touched on a lot of great points that, you know, are integral for success in, you know, just about any role that you could go into, right? And so the fundamentals are usually the same, right? And it's to your point, you know, you just have to make sure that you're consistent in adopting those beliefs and implementing. And it's always fascinating for me to get, you know, the knowledge from someone who's been doing it for so long, and then they're able to share it, right? And that's awesome. But, you know, Rich, if people are listening to this, they either want to reach out to you or they want to, you know, reach out to the company. What are the best ways to go about that?
Oh, well, I would just encourage them. They can actually reach out to me through Kiva's email. I would love to hear from any of the folks who have listened and have further questions. Again, remember what we talked about at the start: conversation creates change, and I love that, and I'm very passionate about the industry. So I'd love to hear from folks with follow-on questions for sure. My email at Kiva is rich.berger, Berger, at kivaconfections.com.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include that in the description. Please reach out to Rich, and I thank you guys. If you did make it all the way to the end, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe for more content. Thanks again, Rich, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care. Ciao.